Why junior doctors are planning to strike? How much am I paid as a junior doctor in training? And what are my costs? Watch this video to find out the answer. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Mariam, a first year internal medicine trainee, aka a junior doctor working in the NHS. Before I dive in and answer those questions, let's break down a few terms. Who are the junior doctors? Doctors who are still in clinical training and have not become consultants or specialist associates are counted as junior doctors. Whether they're freshly graduated FY1s to specialty registrars, being in a clinical practice and in a job for a few years. What is the BMA? It's a trade union and professional body for doctors in the UK. It represents, supports and negotiates on behalf of all UK doctors and medical students. How is the junior doctor's pay calculated? And what is the current situation? There are multiple articles and videos explaining how the doctor's pay is calculated. But to put it in simple words, junior doctor pay is decided by a regulatory body called the Doctors and Dentists Review Body, or in short, DDRB, which sets the pay of doctors and dentists in the NHS. They are meant to be independent and keep doctors' pay in line with the cost of living, the movement of earning in other professions, and the quality and quantity of recruitment in all professions. So in simple words, doctors' pay should be increased in keeping with inflation rate, which sadly is not happening. Just to understand why it's not how it should be, I draw your attention to the junior doctors contract in 2019, which was said that junior doctors are promised a multi-year pay deal, meaning a pay rise of 2% from 2019 to 2022. But at the same time, we should consider the rise in cost of living. So as the inflation goes up, theoretically, your annual income should rise to maintain the same lifestyle. Inflation is going up annually, but doctors' income has been behind the inflation. So that despite the 2% pay rise, we're facing real pay cut and significant decreased purchasing ability. So DDRB thought, okay, it is reasonable to increase doctors' salary by 4.5%, which is again below inflation, but not the junior doctors, because they are subject to the 2% multi-year pay. And of course, they understand what consequences this could have. So currently, junior doctors were offered a well below inflation pay rise of 2%, which is affecting on the motivation, affecting retention, productivity, and ultimately patient care. Being a doctor brings up the assumption of being wealthy as well. But reality is different. Junior doctors are struggling. BMA has done recent real survey of its member. 79% think about leaving the NHS, which alone proves how critical the situation is, including patient safety. Doctors are leaving the NHS, moving to different countries with better pay like Australia, New Zealand, move to different areas of practice like aesthetic field, bank jobs, or even change their careers altogether, which mostly the reason is a combination of level of current pay and deteriorating working condition, especially after COVID. So imagine medical rotas are left vacant, but they should be filled. It's either locum doctors covering, meaning hospital ends up paying much more money than paying junior doctors fairly, or rota gaps are left vacant, causing the current junior doctors to overwork and burn out and ultimately consider leaving training and working in the NHS. Clearly, no doctor would like to strike, but we're left with no choice. How much am I paid as a ST1 or internal medicine trainee year 1? Consider the fact that someone at my level has completed medical school, has at least 3 years of work experience as a doctor. I am in a general medical rota and my pay would be fairly the same throughout my IMT year 1 and year 2. In my first rotation in geriatric medicine, my basic pay was £3,354.75. And as I work on social hours like evening shifts, night shifts and weekends, my gross pay was £4,584.42. Considering deduction of tax, national insurance and my pension, my take home was £3,082.20. I worked total contracted hours of 47.5 per week, which is just half an hour less than breaching the European Time Directive. In an 11-week rota, I worked 7 night shifts, 3 weekends and 5 long day shifts, which I end up working 66 hours in some of the weeks. But what are my costs? Let alone the cost of accommodation, utility bills and groceries. As a doctor in the UK, if you want to progress in your training, there are some costs. Although trainees are entitled to a study budget and relocation expenses, it's not always feasible to claim it all. Every doctor in the UK pays the annual GMC registration fee, which I paid £161 this year. I pay for my indemnity cover, which is £49 annually, being an SD1 in training. As a doctor, you need enhanced DBS check per contract, costing £49. BMA membership, which is £20 monthly for my level of training. NHS portfolio, which is an essential part of training and our progression in internal medicine, which I paid in one go for all 3 years, costing £516, and sadly you cannot claim it from your deanery. Royal College exams, or in our specialty MRCP exam, which again is indispensable part of training, and you cannot use your study budget for it. Part 1 and 2 each costing £460 and PACES costing £657. Consider the fact that you need to travel for your PACES exam as well. Preparation for the MRCP and study resources are also very expensive. You can claim one MRCP course from your 3-year study budget, which usually trainees claim PACES course, which are usually 1,000 or so. Hence your part 1 and part 2 study resources would be self-funded, which for each question bank you'd pay around £120, and usually trainees need to do different question banks. I personally spent £210 only for part 1 question banks. We have relocation expenses as well, as it is very rare that you stay in the same hospital for the entire duration of your training. Trust reimburse you up to a certain amount, clearly. For me, it did not cover my total expenses, which I ended up paying £500 extra myself. ALS course is an absolute essential for all doctors, which you can mostly claim from your study budget. Mine was a year and a half ago, which I used my study budget, but usually it is around £350 to £700. If you want to enter higher specialty training, you need to do different courses and attend different conferences, which sometimes is impossible to get it from your study budget because, well, first of all, you've already maxed out or it's not approved. These costs are totally variable, and with the current competition ratios, there's literally no cap. So you could start spending from £1,000 for the whole specialty training application up to, God knows, even 15,000 if you want to do a master's. Ultimately, after your MRCP, you become a member of Royal College of Physicians, which also comes with a fee, and of course you would become a member of the association or society of the specialty you want to do after your IMT, which again comes with a fee. And do not forget, as an international medical graduate, our costs are much more. Apart from exams for registration, which is absolutely our choice and we do it to come to the UK, we have visa fees for each member of family, partners who might not be able to work, children who we have to pay for childcare because we have no family members to look after them, not having adequate saving or credit score to buy a property, and of course not having enough information on how to cut the costs. So it's not cheap to work as a doctor and progress in your training. Putting these figures together, you'd realize that you don't have enough money to progress in your work and maintain a decent lifestyle outside of work. What usually happens as a doctor, you would end up doing locum shifts on your days off, which, imagine if you're working 66 hours a week, you only have 1 day off. But at the same time, you need to study for your exams. But wait a second, you need to pay for your exam as well. And that's when you end up being frustrated. Even if you decide to pick up a locum shift, on weeks that you work 45 hours, you're significantly underpaid. And you wonder, does it worth tiring myself? So you'd end up in a vicious cycle of being tired from your contracted hours, studying on your days off, or working with an unacceptable wage of locum shifts, and ending up being burnt out. So hopefully I've explained enough that junior doctors deserve a true pay restoration. Otherwise, I'm not sure how NHS would survive with frustrated and undervalued juniors who decide to leave the NHS. I strongly advise you to join the BMA and campaign with us to help improve the working lives of junior doctors across the UK.